Hello and welcome to this month's Dolby Atmos Music Community Sessions. I'm Ben Guyver, Senior Creative Relations with Dolby Laboratories based in Los Angeles. And in this month's session, super excited to share a new product with you, along with Dolby's Jordan Glasgow, Senior Product Manager of Content Creation, and Dolby's Finn Barnes, Product Manager for Audio Content Solutions. We'll be joined by Grammy Award-winning mix engineer from Los Angeles, John Kercy, as we dive into the new Dolby Atmos Renderer application and answer your questions here live. So the Dolby Atmos Renderer is an exciting new product that brings together Dolby's industry-leading audio production tools, the Dolby Atmos Production Suite and the Dolby Atmos Mastering Suite, and combines them into an all-in-one solution for audio professionals and creators. So Jordan and Finn will go over all of the new Dolby Atmos Renderer features, including a new user interface designed for a smoother user experience, room calibration tools that are available now, which were previously only within the Dolby Atmos Mastering Suite, like Room EQ and Array Mode, native Apple Silicon support for improved overall performance, including native support for the Dolby Atmos Music plugins you're probably familiar with, the Dolby Atmos Music Panner, the binaural settings plugin, and the LTC generator, 96K ADM support, and the ability to retain your trim and downmix settings, and a 512 re-render option. So a lot of great updates and features that Finn, Jordan, and John will share. Please add your questions here in the go-to menu for those folks to answer after the demo. Before we jump into that, a huge shout out to everyone who came through Dolby House at this year's South by Southwest in Austin to experience Dolby technologies powering music, movies, games, automobiles. We had a live show in Dolby Atmos, and we truly had a great time connecting with you all. Again, a huge shout out to the amazing guests who joined our panel discussions and programs. We have a ton of content that's going to be dropping from this huge week of programming that went down. Keep an eye on events.dolby.com and our socials for all of that coming soon. The music partnerships team was very active at South by Southwest. My fantastic colleagues, Christine Thomas, head of music industry relations, led a couple of great discussions on harnessing Dolby technologies and creative empowerment. Aaron Venables, senior manager of music industry relations, shared our resources on a panel with our friends at the Digilog. I had a few minutes to sit down at Dolby House one-on-one with Atlanta artist and producer Suave the day after he performed as part of Vibe and Def Jam's Next and Now showcase to talk about his new album, Almitha's Son, which is streaming now in Dolby Atmos on his enabled music services. We also recently dropped an artist profile video with Suave where he takes us through parts of his creative journey, along with Atlanta mix engineer KY Engineering, who we featured on last month's music community session. So check out the artist profile and the community session at our YouTube channel and our Dolby Professional site. Also at this year's Dolby House, Dolby Institute hosted their Dolby Atmos Music Artist Accelerator program, which offers music creatives a deep dive into the world of Dolby Atmos music creation. This is a program that Brandon Nales and John Scanlon from Dolby Institute manage, where participants receive hands-on education, mentorship from Atmos engineers like Nick Reeves and Matt Lang, along with Dolby professionals and music industry experts to create original music in Dolby Atmos and help to jumpstart their careers as Dolby Atmos music creators. It's a really special program. Dolby Institute just dropped an overview video of their Artist Accelerator program on the Dolby YouTube channel, which features some of the up-and-coming artists and producers who participated in the Miami version of the Accelerator late last year, which was at Art House, Abbey Road Institute in Miami, with Julio Capello, Robin Rumors, and Italian Schlesinger. And Dolby Institute have built a new page at dolby.com/institute with a great overview of the Accelerator program and all the great work they're doing to empower the next generation of creatives. So be sure to check that out. As you may know, Dolby Institute is also where you'll find a ton of resources, the music creation tutorial videos with Dolby's Luke Argilla, taking you all the way through from setup to delivery, headphone creation with Maggie Tobin, studio setup and room tuning with Luke and Brian Pennington, both beginner and advanced tutorial videos in Spanish with Luis del Toro, plus the Dolby Atmos music curriculum and self-guided training is available there in 5 languages as well. You'll also find the Dolby knowledge base, the user forms, the FAQs, and more at professional.dolby.com. And that's where your studio resources are as well. So we have dedicated studio teams around the world. Whether you're a studio in the early stages of enablement and looking for guidance, you can connect with us via our Music Studios onboarding form, or if you're a studio really in any stage of content creation, we have a ton of resources and best practices for you at professional.dolby.com. All right, so thanks to everyone who joined last session with KY Engineering, and also to those who completed our feedback survey. We'll be sending another survey out following this session. We really do appreciate your feedback as we plan future sessions. Give us your ideas on who you think we should feature as guests, what topics you'd like to see, what you'd like to see more of, what you'd like to see less of. Really value that feedback. You can also hit us up anytime at musicwebinars@dolby.com. With that, let's jump into an overview of the new Dolby Atmos Renderer. Please add your questions in the go-to box here. All right, I'm very excited to welcome my guests from Dolby, Jordan Glasgow, Senior Product Manager, Content Creation, Finn Barnes, Product Manager, Audio Content Solutions, and from Los Angeles, Grammy Award-winning Mix and Recording Engineer, Mr. John Kercy. Welcome, gentlemen.
Hi. Thank you for having us.
Thank you so much for joining me for this session. If you could please just maybe tell us a little bit about yourselves and what you do. We'll start with Jordan.
Hello, Jordan Glasgow. I lead our professional software team here at Dolby, both for content creation and distribution.
Thanks. And Finn?
Hi, I'm Finn Barnes. I am the product manager of the Dolby Atmos Renderer, and I'm based in Barcelona and with the development team there, although I'm originally from London.
Awesome. And John?
Hi, I'm John Kercy. I am a mixing and recording engineer based in Burbank, California.
Awesome. Thank you. Really appreciate you guys being here. Excited to have you. People are very interested to hear about the new renderer. So, Jordan, let's start with you. Dolby works very closely with the creative community. We always have to help develop and refine the tool set, right? You listen closely to the needs of mixing engineers, mastering engineers, people working in the market, and regularly collaborate when building and iterating on the tool set. That's a conversation that's always happening. But maybe you can set the stage by just explaining for those who don't know what the Dolby Atmos renderer is, how that works with various DAWs, and then a little background on what you were hearing in the market that got us to where we are today.
Yeah, absolutely. So the Dolby Atmos renderer is the central element of the Dolby Atmos mixing workflow, and it connects to a DAW such as Pro Tools or Pyramix or Nuendo or Resolve. So you send your audio and positional metadata from your DAW to the renderer, and it renders it both for speaker playback and for creation of your file-based deliverables. Historically, we've had two products, the Dolby Atmos Production Suite and the Dolby Atmos Mastering Suite. And, originally when we introduced those two products, the features were quite different, as were the price points. And over the years, the feature set is sort of converged to where the feature set was almost identical, except for a couple of things. And we heard a lot of feedback from our customers that there was confusion around which product should they purchase, what's the differences. One of them supported Mac only, one of them was Mac and Windows. So what we did was we decided to consolidate the products into a single product called Dolby Atmos Renderer. The version number is 5.0. And there's a bunch of benefits in doing this. One is, we're giving it at a lower price point than previous. So it's $299. Previously, if you wanted to get the Dolby Atmos Mastering Suite, it was $999. So if you're a Windows user especially, you can now get into things for the $299 price point. Windows users still do need to run on a separate computer than their DAW, but we have qualified some new lower cost Windows PCs, which makes that a little easier to get into. The good news for Production Suite users is that when they upgrade to this new version, they will get a couple of new features that were previously only available in the Mastering Suite, like Room EQ and remote connectivity. And I will mention that there is a $50 upgrade fee to move to this new version that covers the cost of development of some of the new features. And some of those new features, Finn will talk about these in a minute, but we have native Apple Silicon support, 96 kilohertz ADM support, and several more things. that you'll be hearing about. So those were some of the reasons why we decided to create this new product, and we're pretty excited about it.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. So, Finn, as Jordan has shared, the renderer combining the features of both the production suite and the mastering suite really kind of brings things together. And I think there's a lot of reasons that users are really going to be excited about the things that Jordan mentioned, not only the enhancements within the tool set, but also the compatibility with other hardware and software that really kind of adds to the flexibility of the tools so that people can fit Dolby Atmos music creation into their studio and their workflow, whatever that may be. So do you want to share kind of a little more detail on some of the main features? Then we can jump into a demonstration.
Yeah, I'd love to. Uh, as you're seeing on your screen now, this is the Dolby Atmos Renderer. You'll notice that it resembles very much the production suite and mastering suite products that we had before. However, you'll instantly notice that we've enhanced the UI. We've increased the contrast for readability. We had reports from the field that some of the items weren't very crisp to read, so we've taken that on and increased that a great deal to hit UI standards, in fact. And then if you were a previous production suite user, there are new features available to you now. The main one of those being the speaker calibration. So you can now tune your room within the app if you so wish. So you can click through the speakers, send noise to the speakers, and then adjust the EQs throughout each speaker there. You can then copy and paste those EQs between speakers and really get to the heart. This is a terrible EQ that I've just set up, but you can get to the heart of your room and really get everything sounding nice, and that's now included in the software. We've also added, and this is for both users, we've added a finer granularity in the speaker delay. Previously it was per 1 millisecond, now it's tenths of milliseconds. So again, control of your room, setting it up so you really get that sounding nice is all now available in this software. Also actually added to that for the production suite users, if they've upgraded to the Dolby Atmos Renderer, they now get access to array mode, which is the ability to add more speakers. If, say, you have a standard 714, but maybe you're in a kind of mid-sized room that's got extra speakers at the rears, or maybe extra speakers at the sides, you can now run that into array mode. Again, tune the delays of your whole arrays, and then set up your monitoring as a result of those extra speakers that you may have in your room. So again, we've just expanded the choice that users can have, and then instantly flick back if you wanted to hear and monitor in 714 again. We also have added, and this was a big request from our users and our creatives, previously in the trims and downmix window, these settings used to reset every time you close the renderer. Now we've made them persistent, so in effect you can tune them to your favorite settings, whatever they will be, accept them, and then next time you open the renderer, go straight back and they will be there. So again, we're saving time for the user and letting them create, concentrate on the creativity rather than on the technical side of things. We've also introduced 96K support for ADMs. So if you open a 96K master, then we can now, as you can see, export that as an ADM BWF file and then reload that as well. So for that extra higher quality audio for archiving, you can now archive the ADMs at 96K. And also, as Jordan said, this is completely native Apple Silicon, and we've also now bundled in with the renderer the three plugins, that Dolby plugins, the Dolby Atmos Music Panner, Dolby Atmos Binaural Settings plugin, and the Dolby LTC Generator. They are also all now Apple native M1 Silicon, and they are all now bundled in with the renderer installer.
This is something that I'm sure you were asked for a lot and really kind of creates more ways for people to work in Atmos and be more versatile, right?
Yeah, I would add to that we've increased the number of machines that you can run the Dolby Atmos renderer on. We've qualified it for more Windows machines. With a Windows setup, you do still have to run the renderer on a separate machine from your DAW. However, the machines we've qualified are actually a lot lower price points than previous machines. So we've really made even the two machine workflow so much cheaper now, so much more accessible. So we've qualified, not only the new M1 Max, M2 Max, but also smaller, lower price point PCs as well.
And Jordan, with retaining trim and down mix controls and the 512 re-render options, there are more ways to be able to check translation and hear fold down from your Atmos mix to different speaker configurations or devices as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Those were both requests that we got from many, many customers in the field, and we're happy that we were able to add them here.
Great. And then the UI enhancements, giving people more ways to easily find what they're looking for, more ways to quickly dive into the menus and get what you need. Those are also pieces that came directly from feedback from the creative community as well. Can you talk just a little bit about what some of those are again?
Yes, as you can see, we've expanded the menus items into a more logical setup, really, and they're shorter. Everything's easier to get to. You can see where things are easier. You can even get to the manuals easier if you do need to read those. But yes, if it's something to do with the input section or the master, then it's in the input and master. If it's something to do with setting up the renderer, it's all in the setup column. So really, it's just about, again, speeding up the workflow. Less concentration on the technicalities, more concentration on the creativity.
Yeah, in addition to the contrast that Finn mentioned, you're also seeing here that some of the fonts are bigger and more legible, which was also some feedback that we got. And you'll notice that this kind of new look and feel is going to be rolling out in all of our other content creation tools in the coming months as well, whether it's the album assembler or the Atmos conversion tool. So look for that coming soon.
So Jordan, native Apple Silicon support obviously adds some performance enhancements. Talk about how that kind of makes things easier for creators to quickly get up and achieve what they need to do.
Yeah, the renderer has been running fine in Rosetta 2 mode on M1 and M2 machines. But now that we have native Apple Silicon support, it's pretty screaming fast. So things like ADM export and the offline loudness measurement are just going to be much faster, especially when running on a M1 or M2 machine. So really excited about that.
All right, so John, let's go to you. You're a Grammy Award-winning mix and recording engineer. You've worked with the likes of Lil Wayne, Disclosure, Diddy, and you've been working in Atmos for a few years, right? Mixing artists such as Giveon, Lucky Day. Maybe take us a little bit through your current studio setup and how you're integrating Dolby Atmos into your room.
Yeah, so basically, I found out about, or started hearing about Atmos probably around like 2019, 2020-ish. And I thought it was like a pretty interesting technology. And since the pandemic was going on, it was really, really, really tough to get my hands on the equipment required to get like a setup. So I had reached out to my guy Dan over at Westlake Pro, and we were able to go back and forth and figure out a system. And what I landed on was getting a full array of Atmos speakers, including like 2 subs and a full 7.1.4 system with Charles Adams speakers. And for monitoring at the time, when I do my stereo stuff, I have a controller that I believe it's like the M905, I believe it's called. Um, the Grace stereo monitor controller, but Grace at the time didn't offer anything that would be able to handle 7.1.4. So what I ended up going with was with the JBL Intonato system, which was really, really great because it helped me get up to speed very, very quickly. Because all I had to do was just use like the little RTA mic, and it automatically did all my aligning, and it did it really, really well. And I didn't really use it to do like the room tuning because the room was pretty solid, just small slight adjustments that I had to make EQ wise. And yeah, and I was off to the races.
Nice. And now with the Dolby Atmos renderer kind of combining the best of the Dolby Atmos mastering suite, which you were using, now you're able to do some tuning if you're going from different rooms, do some EQ, some delay compensation right on your laptop if you're bouncing between different studios like you are today.
Yeah, absolutely. Like today, I'm using a mobile rig because I'm, yeah, and that system that I'm using now is an Intel based system, and the fact that you guys are coming out with the new silicon the silicon based render is really dope because as a creative, like most of us don't really upgrade our systems as fast as others might. Like soon as something drops, we kind of like wait to see how stable it's going to be because I don't want my workflow to necessarily get messed up by like a bug or not. So definitely the new M1 M2 chipset computers are something that I definitely have in the pipeline to purchase, and the fact that you guys already are on the ball with that is really, really great.
And then some of the work that you've been doing on records like Giveon and Lucky Days Over, you were the original stereo mix engineer, but also the recording engineer and the Atmos engineer, right? So you were really there throughout a lot of the pieces of the creative process, and in particular the Lucky Day record Over. I mean, it's like a beautiful soul record. You're working with a lot of live instrumentation. You've got that, obviously, that live and recording engineering background. How does that kind of shape your approach to mixing these records in Dolby Atmos? Are you thinking about that at the time that you're kind of doing the stereo recording and mixing as well?
For sure. Definitely, I was thinking about that. Specifically for me, like once I got the hang of what Atmos is, for at least in my opinion, I've started preferring it over mixing in stereo because when Atmos was a lot of mixes started coming out with Atmos, it kind of felt um, like tricks, like, oh man, everything is like spinning around the room and this and that. But once I sat down with it and really, really honed into it, I started realizing that it was um, a technology that offered me an opportunity to really pinpoint exactly where I want things to be, and I didn't have to use too many tricks like I have to do in stereo to be able to make things cut through the mix and do psychoacoustic things where you feel something's there. If I just wanted Lucky's vocal to be right here, I can just move it there, and then just EQ and compress to taste. And the instrumentation, I'm always big on the soundstage and like the canvas that the like the performance is being presented in. And with Atmos, like I said, I can literally just like close my eyes and move things into place to where I feel that like Lucky's there with me, and man, to hear the drums, here's the bass, like I'm at like a live show or something, like an acoustic show where the drummer's there, the bass amp is here, Lucky's here, et cetera, et cetera. And in Atmos, I can truly do that with little to no compromise.
Nice. It really comes across like well done. I think you've done a nice job translating it from the vision in stereo to what's possible in Atmos with the space and the ability to have placement and definition and separation for those elements to create the feeling that you're almost there in the room. I wanted to just ask you quickly about some of the work you did on Giveon. I mean, it's somebody that has such an amazing voice, right? Like,
Oh
how
man,
are you using the Atmos tool set to create those layers and harmonies and those ad libs in the Atmos mix coming from the stereo world?
man. With Giveon, it's specifically one of those things, like you said, like he has such a unique voice. So that's the the main thing that I always love to highlight about his records. And in Atmos, I can I can make I can make him feel like he's so close to you, like almost like he's like in your ears, you know, and have like the background surrounding you. Like a lot of times I like to have his, like some of the backgrounds I like to have him placed mid, like behind his vocal, and then on basically on both sides of his vocal to kind of surround his lead with like the backgrounds and stuff. And yeah, man, like his records are a lot about vibe, and Atmos absolutely allows me to tap into that.
Nice. So if folks haven't yet, be sure to check out Lucky Days Over and Givion's Give or Take on enabled streaming music services now. All right, with that, we are going to jump into some Q&A. So I thank Jordan, John, and Finn for demonstrating and sharing all of their knowledge. And let's go into Q&A. All right, I'd like to invite my guests back on screen. And on the screen now is a QR code for a 90-day trial of the Dolby Atmos Renderer. So the new renderer, make sure you zap that QR code, get it downloaded, get familiar with it if you haven't already. And be sure to add your questions in the Q&A box here. We've got a ton that have come in already, so thank you for submitting those, and a ton that were pre-submitted as well. So thank you so much. Happy to welcome back Jordan, Finn, and John. Jordan and Finn, let's jump into some of the render update specific questions to get going. And John, there's some creative stuff that's great creative questions that have come in for you, so we'll go to you shortly. But starting off, Finn, Jordan, where can I get the Dolby Atmos renderer, and how much does it cost?
Do you want to take this?
Yeah, I got it. So you can purchase it directly from the Avid store. It is $299 new, or if you're upgrading from the production suite or mastering suite, it is a $50 upgrade. Also, if you are one of the folks who purchased the production or mastering suite in the last few weeks, anybody who purchased after February 1st will get a free update. You've already been notified by that, either from Avid or from your dealer if you purchased from a dealer.
Awesome, thanks. I'm getting a little bit of feedback, guys, so if you're not answering a question, if you could just mute, please. The next question, a lot of questions about Windows compatibility. Does the Atmos renderer work in a Windows setting? We mentioned this in the demonstration. Are there any limitations with using Windows?
So yes, the Dolby Atmos renderer is compatible Mac and Windows. I'm not sure you count it as a limitation, but if you're working on a Windows machine, then the renderer has to be on a separate machine to your DAW. Interlinked by some of the many various I/O hardware configurations that we've tested. They're all listed in the install configuration guide. And as we said earlier, the amount of hardware, particularly PC hardware, has expanded as well.
Thank you. We've had a couple of questions from Juan and a few other folks about how to connect internally between two Windows computers. Can you talk a little bit about that, Jordan or Finn?
Yeah, so well, as I just said, they're all listed up in the install config guide. MADI connections, down to connections. We've even done the merging VAD, virtual audio device. A lot of options there. Read all about them. They're all perfectly tested and with setup guides in there as well. Step-by-step process to help you along.
Thank you. Diego's asking kind of a general question. How does this affect professional Atmos workflows? Obviously, it's making it more affordable and accessible, but that's kind of the goal of this, right? More accessibility, more options, more affordability.
Yeah, I mean, I really like basically everybody has the same the same equipment now. There is no divide from the professional Atmos. It can be the hobbyist just doing Atmos for fun in his bedroom, through to podcasters, through to musicians like John here, through to, I mean, movies, a high-end home theater. It's the same tool. Everybody has access to the same tool. So yeah, it's all there. Go play.
Nice, thank you. John, let's go to you for a minute. We have a couple of questions about QC. Addie's asking, how do you communicate about the mix when your client's not in the control room with you? How are you sending them files? How do you communicate QC with them?
Generally, I do export of an MP4, and I use my server to send a link over with detailed instructions for them to easily just play it back and listen to it, on the proper headphones and stuff.
Great, thanks. Another question for you, talking about mixing different styles. How do you approach mixing different styles, jazz, rock, classical, John?
Generally, I just listen to the record, The approach is very similar between genres, but I just use my ears and just really pay attention to what the song needs and, make adjustments accordingly.
Awesome, thanks. Let's see here. What are the CPU requirements for a remote rendering station? And Finn, you talked about it a little bit, and certainly we have specs online.
Yeah, so this is interesting. We spec machines very closely for the renderer to run. The remote for the renderer, or we just say, can be used on the same machine as your DAW. It's a very lightweight app, and some people actually run it on machines that aren't running the DAW, just another computer on the network. I'd say you couldn't run it on a Windows 95 machine, but any machine of today's standards will be perfectly capable to run that renderer remote. It's a very lightweight app. It simply connects to the Dolby Atmos renderer and controls its UI.
Awesome, thank you. Had a question from Michael, and I can take this one. What's a good way for a beginner to get into Dolby Atmos mixing? And Jordan or John, feel free to jump in. But obviously, you can download a 90-day trial of the Dolby Atmos renderer, which we mentioned off the top. That's at professional.dolby.com. We also have several quick start videos for various DAWs, in-depth tutorials on I/O, setup, room config and tuning, headphone workflows, QC. There's self-guided curriculum, downloadable exercises at Dolby Institute's page. And you can also connect with our studios team to receive guidance on whatever stage of the journey you're in, whether that's research or build or mixing. And you can reach out to them at musicstudios at dolby.com. And we also have all of these webinars that we've been doing month by month archived on our YouTube page and on our professional.dolby.com page as well.
Yeah, I'll also mention, I know we're talking about the Dolby Atmos renderer today, but one of the really easy ways to get involved is if you're using a DAW that has native Atmos integrated into it, like Logic Pro or Cubase, for example, then you don't need an external application from Dolby. You can just do everything you need in the box with one of those DAWs. So it really depends on what your DAW of choice is. If you're a Pro Tools user, then you probably do want to get the Dolby Atmos renderer that we've been talking about.
Yep, thank you. We also had a question about Spanish language material, and at professional.dolby.com, there are studio setup and deep dive tutorial videos by Luis Del Toro, who's a mix engineer, that are in Spanish, and their self-guided curriculum is also available in Spanish as well as 4 other languages at professional.dolby.com. So great resource for you there. And there are also partners and people out in the world that are making amazing studio setup and mix videos in a variety of languages, including in Spanish. So check for those out there. They are out there in the world. Jordan, for you, when will the Dolby Atmos album assembler be compatible with the renderer, the new renderer?
Good question. We're working on a new version that will be tested with the new renderer and also be Apple Silicon compatible natively. Should be available in the coming months. That said, even though we haven't fully tested or qualified it yet, I'm not aware of any issues with the current version of the album assembler, version 1.1 and renderer 5.0. So, feel free to give it a try if you like, but a couple months from now.
Awesome, thanks. And if folks missed it a couple of months ago, we did a deep dive and demonstration on the Dolby Atmos album assembler that Jordan demonstrated for us, along with Luke Armentrout and Andrew Mendelson from Georgetown Masters. So if you haven't had a chance to check that out, be sure you do. And there's also quick start videos available at professional.dolby.com on that as well. Interface feature question here, maybe for Finn. Transport control, will there be a fast forward or rewind feature added to the renderer playback section in the future? Oh, yeah, I think you're on mute, Finn.
There's always one, and it's always me.
All good.
Yeah, this is a request we've had before, certainly, and I'd say constantly, as you've seen from this upgrade, that we are always working in step with customer feedback, and we will continue to be working on that as we move forward to just keep making this renderer better. And that's certainly a request we've had many times.
Awesome, thanks. John, one for you, kind of going back to QCing a little bit. How are you QCing your mixes to make sure that the binaural metadata is all there, not just set to mid, and that the loudness levels are good? Obviously, these are creative decisions that you're making, but can you talk a little bit about how you do that?
Yeah, so since I'm in Pro Tools, I have the remote that's attached to one of the tracks in there. What I do is I have everything arranged a certain way. So let's say I have like objects 1 through 50 set to near, 51 through 80 set to mid, and then so on and so forth. So and anytime I load up the session, I make sure I go to that plugin and I make sure everything's connected to the renderer, and I have a preset that I just click on, and it makes sure that everything is set the same. So like when I'm doing an album, everything is in line, So when I go to print everything, I go ahead and print it out and I load it into the renderer, and I play it back, and I look at the window that shows me what all the object rendering settings are, and if it matches what I usually have, we're good to go.
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah.
All right, so some great questions coming in. Thank you, folks. We're going to try to run through these here. Kind of a curveball, but what are the odds of getting the Atmos Panner plugin for Windows, Jordan or Finn? Mark works in the game audio industry, and a lot of folks in this field are exclusively on Windows.
Yeah, it's something that we haven't been able to tackle quite yet, and it's not on the near-term roadmap. The good news is, that with DAWs that support Windows like Cubase and Nuendo, that's a great way to get mixing in Atmos natively on Windows.
Awesome. Our buddy Alex Solano is asking, with client QC and approvals being remote, are there any plans to develop an ADM player? This is roadmap question for clients to check mixes on headphones. I guess he means like outside of the renderer.
Nothing at the moment, but yeah, definitely understand why that would be a cool feature, but you can certainly use the renderer for that purpose. That's a good way to go, or a DAW.
Cool. Danny asks, and I think this is about room configuration in the renderer. Can you save settings to a file specifically on the speaker page?
So you can obviously export your settings. So once you've set up your room, we obviously always advise export them, back them up, and then if you happen to be needing to import them again, import the settings, and the EQ will come straight back up. We haven't yet implemented a kind of specific EQ export just from that export page, but you can always export all your settings.
Awesome, thank you. Question about using different versions of the renderer, Jordan or Finn. If swapping between the renderers, for example, 5.0 and 3.7.3, are there any important settings to have saved before making that switch?
I'll let Finn take the settings part, but I do know you want to rename your applications folder before installing, so you can have both.
So I would say, obviously, if you're upgrading any piece of software, always export your settings, keep those as backup, then upgrade, then re-import your settings to that. Make sure you don't lose anything at all. You obviously have to go through the upgrade process, and in that process you would have to surrender your 373 license to activate the upgrade license. So just make sure you, again, that you've backed everything up. We've tested it, nothing's gone wrong, but just for your own peace of mind. I would just say, if there's anybody out there that's still on renderer 351, any old renderer that they've not quite got around to upgrading to 3.7, do upgrade to 373 first. That will keep your settings all in line. Then you can export your settings to then come up to 5.0.
Thank you. The question from Stan, is there anything online that describes the setup for the V5 release? And I think there is a quick start or an overview video that just came out a couple of days ago, gentlemen.
Yeah, professional.dolby on the support forums. There's a page, what's new in the Dolby Atmos Renderer 5.0. There's a great little video at the top, and then there's some frequently asked questions straight below, which is a great resource.
Awesome, thank you. We've touched on this a few times, but we've gotten the question a few more times. So I'm moving to the new renderer. Do I have to pay for the update? Can we talk a little bit about the pricing structure and how to get that upgrade and how that all works, please?
Jordan?
Yeah, so it's a $50 upgrade. You get it on the Avid store. And as Finn mentioned, it will ask you to surrender your existing license for the production or mastering suite. So make sure that you get the right one, if, depending on which product that you own. Anything else that I left out, Finn?
Once you've received your new license, to activate it, you'll have to go into your iLok license manager. When you click activate, it will then come up with license to surrender, and it will ask you to surrender your either your production suite 373 license or your mastering suite 373 license, depending on the upgrade you bought. Make sure you upgrade from the right product that you have, and then that will activate the 5.0 authorization, and then you're good to go.
Awesome, thank you. Question came in from Ira asking if Dolby will be at NAMM in Anaheim this year. The answer to that is yes. We'll be supporting our partners at various locations throughout the weekend. Jordan, you'll also be joining as well.
I'll be there. Come find me.
Yep, so come through and say hi, come find us. Look forward to seeing everybody there as always as well. A question about using a remote renderer again, but do you need 2 copies of the renderer software, one on the DAW and one on the renderer computer?
Everything's in the installer. So once you've downloaded the installer, you can install the main renderer on your main renderer machine and use your iLok on that machine. The renderer remote doesn't require an iLok, so you can just take the installer onto whatever machine you want to run your remote, and in the install box, just check the remote, install that on your remote machine, and you're good to go.
Awesome, thank you. Question from Justin here. I'm a Logic Pro user and I've been using the Atmos plugin inside Logic. If I want to use the renderer application in my workflow, what's the best way to do that? Should I export my project as an ADM B-Wave and then import it back into the DAW?
I think it depends what you want to use the renderer for. If you're using it to generate MP4 files, then yes, you can export an ADM from Logic, bring that into the renderer, and then export your MP4. But if you're really just mixing, you don't necessarily need the renderer application. You can do everything that you need directly in Logic.
Awesome. Just looking through here. Can you talk a little bit about how the Dolby audio or the send and return settings are affected in the new renderer, Jordan or Finn?
Go for it, Finn.
Cheers. Yeah, so in the Renderer Release 5.0, we have removed support for the send and return plugins workflow. This was due to OS updates, store updates, our update. The send and return plugins were the support burden was increasing, and then Avid actually came out with their Avid I/O feature, aux I/O feature, which is great. Has a lot more capabilities than the send and return plugins ever did. So that workflow replaces the send and return plugins. Go and try that out. I think it's a fantastic feature.
Awesome, thank you. Question about compatibility with OS versions, Jordan. From Reinhold, my Atmos Renderer 373 is running on Mac OS 10.13.6. Can I upgrade to the new renderer? The compatibility chart says it's only qualified for 10.14 and above.
So
go ahead, Finn. You got that one.
Yes, so we've tested on what it says on the spec. 10.30, is that High Sierra? I can't quite get my numbers in my head. I would go Catalina and upwards, but High Sierra's pushing it. Back to the Windows 95, probably won't run on that either.
Okay. Question from Jonathan here on the licenses in the previous mastering suite. The mastering suite came with 3 copies of the production suite. Do you now pay $50 each for each of those licenses going forward with the new renderer?
Yeah, you do. So if you want to upgrade all 4 of those, the 1 mastering suite and the 3 production suite, you would need to pay $50 times 4. And you know, a lot of what we found is a lot of customers weren't necessarily using all 4 of those. So that was part of the decision to do that.
Awesome, thanks. Question about storing and recalling different room EQs in the renderer. Can you create and recall different room EQs, different curves within the renderer?
Sorry, just finding my mute button. So again, once you've set up your room EQ in the new renderer, you can export your settings, and that will export all your settings together so you don't lose them. And then you can obviously re-import them if you do happen to change them, or maybe change them by mistake and want to revert. But there's currently no feature just to import and export the EQ settings.
Awesome, thank you. Question to binaural rendering in version 5. Are there any differences? Mark Oliver is asking, are there any differences or improvements made to the binaural rendering in version 5 of the renderer? Or do we know when these changes will be applied to the new window renderer?
We're constantly working forward to looking at ways to improve the binaural system, continually making changes to the sound of our binaural renderer, and also working with our partners to do the same. I can't comment on timelines of other companies, but yeah, that's the goal.
Awesome, just looking through here. This is a Pro Tools HDX question, maybe Jordan. Will there ever be a way to use the Dolby Audio Bridge and HDX DSP processing at the same time?
Oh, I'm going to hand that one over to Finn. He's got it.
Well, I would say that if you investigate the Avid's aux I/O feature, then that will probably unlock that potential for you.
Awesome, thanks. Just looking through here from our buddy Ninad. This is about direct bounce ADMs to Pro Tools. We'll be able to direct bounce ADM from Pro Tools while using the Dolby Panner plugin in a session. I'm guessing he means the music panner.
Tell me. So yeah, the music panner, you would have to write that data to a track first to then have it included in the ADM export. There are ways to do that posted on the internet. It is possible, but you can't just export straight to ADM with that information straight from the panner. You can obviously record into the renderer and then export the renderer, the ADM from the renderer, if you did a pass into the renderer first.
Awesome, thanks. Okay, we've got time for a couple of more here. John, one for you. This is about headphone preferences. Do you have any headphone preferences when it comes to mixing in Atmos on headphones? Any brands you prefer to use?
Generally, I use the Beyerdynamic BT990s, the semi-open back headphones if I need to check binaural mixes and stuff. But once I export it, before I send it off to the client, the MP4 or the ADM, I will use the Apple, what is it, the AirPod Max Pros or whatever they're called, the bigger over-the-ear ones. I'll use that using the same settings I asked the clients to use.
Yep, AirPod Maxes. Jordan, for you, perhaps, what do you recommend for Kerry's asking to get started mixing Dolby Atmos using headphones if you don't have a studio setup?
Yeah, so regardless of whether you're using the renderer or whether you're working natively in a DAW, you can mix binaurally using any pair of headphones. And you know, in all of those applications, there is the opportunity to set each object and bed channel to near, mid, or far. Those are the binaural metadata settings that allow you to you know, position audio objects and bed channels in the room and give you more of the feeling of being in the room. All of that said, it is our recommendation that, you know, everybody who's mixing in Atmos also has a speaker setup, ideally 714 or greater, because there are so many customers that are hearing Atmos in speakers, and more, you know, customers are doing sound bars or Dolby Atmos in the car. So very important, you know, once you know, actually get working in the format, to have both a speaker and a headphone mixing environment that you can kind of A/B between.
Awesome, thank you. Question about the LTC generator while using remote. For the remote renderer, do you still need to use the LTC generator to connect to a remote computer?
So the OTC generator is designed to sit on an audio track in your DAW, and then that gets fed to the renderer, either via the Dolby Audio Bridge. You've got channels 129, 130 there spare, or if you're using MADI or Dante connections to the renderer on a separate machine, run it through an audio track through there, and that will help sync, or that will sync the renderer to your DAW. Then make sure there's blue sync lights on in the renderer, and again, that will sync everything up.
Great, thanks. John, maybe you could take this one, and Finn and Jordan can chime in as well. But in terms of like handling loudness levels when mixing different types of music, how do you handle that, John, as you're preparing for delivery?
So I have a meter that sits on my desk that I monitor, that can show me like LUFS, you know, all my peaks and stuff, and EQ, and to really make sure that everything is you know, working or within spec, I do the loudness, or I use the render to do the loudness check, and I look at the number that it gives back to me, and then I make adjustments from there.
Are you using Phantom Center for your kick and bass, or the center channel?
I don't use Phantom Bass much, but I go back and forth between the bed and the objects. More times than none, everything is going through objects. But if I really need the specifically like the drums and bass to really be really punchy and kind of true to the original record, I'll work more so from the bed with the drums. But everything else, it's always going through objects.
Okay, great, thanks. We've got time for two more. Jordan or Finn, is there any way to specify the exact speaker placement, and does the renderer compute the room geometry when rendering information?
So first off, the speaker room in the renderer is just a visual guide. Those are not actual speaker positions. They're just a graphical guide of which speakers you have signal coming out of. There's lots of speaker positioning information on our websites, on the Institute, the guides for where to put the speakers. And then the concept behind the Atmos format is that downstream, when it hits a consumer device, it will then downmix to that consumer's setup. So that's taken part. That's the magic behind the Atmos rendering. That's what it does.
And then is it possible, Andres asks, is it possible to set an alternate trim setting for a specific renderer, i.e. a web level stereo output?
So I'm assuming that's kind of, I want trim set to one stereo downmix and then set a different set of trims to a different stereo downmix. If that's the case, that's currently not possible. You would set trims for your 5.1 and stereo downmix is the same trim settings there, and that would apply to all of the downmixes that you've, or the they would all apply to the downmix you have set. Sorry.
Awesome. Well, thank you, gentlemen, for all of this amazing information. There were a lot of questions that came through. Apologies to those that we didn't get to. You're welcome to email them to musicwebinars@dolby.com, and we'll do our best to answer them. Thank you to Jordan Glasgow, John Kercy, and Finn Barnes for joining me at this Dolby Atmos Music Community session. My name's Ben Guyvers. Thank you, everybody, for joining today. See you next time.